Hey, 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 it is an unstoppable day. Welcome to a special broadcast of the Unstoppable Story Show, where we are talking to another author with our Unstoppable Author Showcase. So come on in, come on in. We are ready to get started. Welcome to the broadcast. It's your boy, Terrence, the Unstoppable Coach Leffridge, with another episode of the Unstoppable Story Show. But it's a very special episode because we have our Unstoppable Author Showcase. Yes, our Unstoppable Author Showcase, where we are showcasing another fantastic author with another fantastic book this evening. So come on in, like and share. Come on in, like and share. We always love to have you here. And if you are joining us live, here's what I want you to do. As you come in, I want you to put the number one in the comment section, and then give us your name and where you are watching us from. Now, if you're watching the replay, we want to recognize you as well. So we want you to put the number 2 in the comments. And again, put your name and where you are watching us from. We always get back in contact with our viewers because there is no show without you. So now today we have a very special guest. His name is Tiran Jackson, and Tiran Jackson knows what it takes to be resilient. He knows what it takes to go down to the deepest depths of tragedy, work his way up instead of wallowing in pain and misery, and choosing a new path. And he knows how to tap into his faith and to tap into his inner strength and to tap into his purpose to do the things that he was still destined to do. Now, there's a quote in the greatest book ever written that I know of that says, "All things work for the good of those who love God and those who walk in their purpose." Now, it is a powerful quote. We hear it all the time, but we never understand that even though all things work together for good, that all things that we go through may not be good in the process. You're going to have to go through some bad things. You're going to have to go through some things that you may not want it to go through. You may have to go through some things that you don't even understand why you went through. But our guest is going to let you know that in the end, if you choose resilience, you will recognize that all things work together for the good. So let's welcome to the stage our guest today, the author of the book, Choosing Resilience, Mr. Tiran Jackson. Tiran, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm doing well. How about you?
Man, if I had your hand, I'd cut mine off. So thanks for asking. How are you, sir? And welcome to the Unstoppable Story Show.
Look, it's an honor to be here. An honor to be on this platform and to be able to share with such a great person, an inspirational person, and someone who's touching so many people, Terrence. So thank you for having me on this evening.
Well, thank you so much again for that. And you've got a powerful testimony. You've got a powerful book, and we're going to jump right into it. So, but first, before we start talk about the book, we always like to talk about the author first. So, Tiran, why don't you just take 60 seconds, 90 seconds, and tell us who Tiran Jackson is?
So I'm going to give you about who Tiran Jackson was and get to who Tiran Jackson is now. I grew up in Alabama, a small town. I was a good student. I enjoyed life and everything. After I got out of high school, I moved away from there, went to college to be an engineer. And I honestly worked as an engineer in the early phases of my life. I was devoted to being a family man, a man of God, someone who was respectable. And I like to do certain things to help people. I was an athlete growing up, and I transitioned from playing in my younger days to actually coaching kids, coaching other people as they were going through, their times and matriculating through middle school, elementary school, and so on into high school. So I have certain passions and hobbies. I love football, basketball, pretty much anything that involves some type of competition. But I also was very deep into my studies and being able to be knowledgeable at what I was good at. And I did that to parlay into a career as an engineer, went back to grad school, got my MBA, started to move more out of the technical side into the business world until life changed for me. And I'll go into that as we talk.
Yeah, and we want to welcome John C. Butler Cherry to the show. Hey, John C. She says, hey to you, Tyran. Thank you for watching. John C., make sure you let us know where you are watching us from so that we can give a shout out to you. So you had a great upbringing. You had a great, sounds like you had a great college career, and life was good for you. And but you talk about this book, which is called Choosing Resilience. So we don't tend to connect the dots of choosing resilience when life is good. That only tends to happen when things aren't going so good. So was there something that happened in your life that changed that good life you just told us about and had you have to choose to be resilient?
So yeah, first off, everybody out there in the audience, I hope you're sitting down because I'm about to share with you something that is emotional and going to be slightly heavy. So I want you to listen to this. This was about 3.5 years ago. Well, even before then, my former wife, Malika, and we were both busy in our careers. As I mentioned earlier, I was moving up the ranks as an engineering manager for a small company. I'd worked for a couple of companies, and that led me to be able to not only travel throughout the country and move different places, but also see the world. And I was enjoying my job. I was, moving up. And as I stated, I was on the verge of becoming a VP of engineering for the company that I was at. My wife, she was busy as well. She had gone from a career, we met at Tennessee State University. Let me back up there. While we were in undergrad, met at Tennessee State and started our careers together. A couple years after college, we got married and we started our own family, had our son Cameron, and we were starting to develop this path for ourselves. One where we were not only look valuing our careers, our family, but our love towards one another. And that continued to grow over time, even though we were both busy. She had transitioned from being a school teacher to someone who was working in higher ed to help students prepare themselves for their step beyond college, to actually moving on the other side and working for various companies to bring in people that look more like us into positions that they might not have normally had the opportunity for. And right before we were celebrating our 15th wedding anniversary, she had gotten a promotion to being a director at the company that she was working for in human resources. And this was a major accomplishment. Leading up to that point in time, we were both very busy. She was traveling one week, and I would be at home with our son, Cameron. And then the next week, I would plan my travel to visit some vendors or clients that we had. So we were constantly on the go, constantly busy. And with that said, we were truly looking forward to celebrating this milestone, our 15th wedding anniversary. When you think about it, that is something to be proud of, because in these days and times, it's hard to get to that point. And we not only wanted to celebrate because we loved each other, we genuinely liked each other and enjoyed the time, but we really wanted to spend some time to reconnect after our busy lives and be able to celebrate, as I stated, her accomplishment of being able to move forward in her career. So as we were getting up to this point, we decided that, okay, our son was going to go stay with his aunt and uncle, and we were going to get 5 days to connect in the Bahamas. That was where we were going to go. Have a good time, celebrating paradise, enjoy one another, and just enjoy life and being happy and being able to make it to that point in our marriage. We go to the Bahamas, and the first 2 days are great. I'm telling you, we have a phenomenal time. We're having, great meals, some time on the beach, fruity drinks. We're able to, have different shows that we're getting to see. Everything was wonderful on this resort that we were at. On the third day, we decided that we were going to be a little adventurous, and we were going on a little excursion. We would leave the resort, go on an excursion for half a day, get to see more of the island, get to see some different sights, get to see, they had this swimming with the pigs, experience that she really wanted to do. There were iguanas and all of these things. And so we were like, okay, let's go ahead and do this. So we woke up that morning very, very excited. We were looking forward to it. 6:30, we were up, ready to go ahead and get ready for this day. 7:30, we're at breakfast. Go get breakfast, and we go to the place we needed to meet at 7:50, 10 minutes before the bus is supposed to get there. We're the first couple that's waiting at this spot to be picked up and go to the marina and enjoy this time. 8 o'clock, we leave. 8:45, we're checking in to get on this boat and go on this tour. So we're excited. The weather's great. I'm telling you, sun was out. It was a perfect day. I'm telling you, everything was great. 8:55, we board our boat with 8 other passengers. So it's a total of 10 of us on this boat. And at 9 o'clock, we take off. We're thinking this is going to be a phenomenal experience. There was another group that was going on the tour for a full day. So there was a second boat that was getting ready to take off at the same time we did. 9 o'clock, we leave the marina. All is well. I can remember sitting on the boat next to Malika. My right arm over, looking to the left side, thinking to myself, this is just going to be another great adventure. And we're going to have another memorable moment as part of this vacation, as part of this milestone, something that we'll never forget. And then 5 minutes later, at 9:05, my life changed forever. Everything seemed great 1 second. Next second, I found myself waking up face down on the surface of the boat. Didn't know what happened. My right leg was literally on fire. That's what woke me up from being knocked unconscious. As I'm laying on my stomach, I looked down at my left ankle. I could see my ankle bone protruded out. I could see my left foot dangling, just hanging, and blood going all over the place. I could see people on that second boat that took off a few minutes before we did. And they're nearby, maybe about 100 yards away, and they're yelling, "Get off the boat, get off the boat." Here I am on the surface of this boat. I literally try to push myself up, but I crumble. I try to push myself up again, and I didn't know it at that time. My collarbone was broken in 4 places. So here I am, right leg on fire, left foot just dangling, bleeding. Left arm, I can't push myself up. Only thing that I can do is reach my right arm up, put my fingertips in the ridges on the surface of that boat, and try to drag myself away from the flames. As I pull myself away, I pass out again. Now, thankfully, that second boat was close enough, and these passengers saw what had happened, and they were able to get over to me and drag me off from the edge of that boat before it exploded again. Next thing I remember, I was being put on the back of a pickup truck and being carried to a clinic. And as I was being carried there, I was asking, "Where's Malika? Where's my wife?" Being pushed into the clinic. And then once I get in there, I can hear Malika, her moans, her yells. She was throbbing in pain. And I laid there trying to be still, praying to God, telling myself, "Lord, I hope my wife is okay. I hope that she's all right." I could hear her, but I didn't know how she was doing. And at that moment, the doctor came to me and said, "We're sending you to the good hospital. We can't treat you here, you and one other person." And I'm left thinking that, okay, Malika must be doing better than I am if they're sending me and somebody else to the hospital and they're keeping with her. But they tell me she's going to come later. If I fast forward, I got to that hospital. They put me in the surgery. When I wake up, they're trying to reattach my left foot. And I asked the doctors, "Where's Malika? Is she here yet? How is she?" The doctors leave the room. Okay, I didn't ask anything so crazy. Why are they leaving?
Yeah.
They tell me, "Mr. Jackson, your wife didn't make it."
Wow.
And here I am. I'm trying to be optimistic about it, Terrence. I'm really trying to be optimistic.
Yeah.
Okay, this flight hasn't gotten here yet. The plane, they must have had some logistical issues. No. "Mr. Jackson, your wife passed away at the clinic." That was the start of everything becoming just so difficult, so challenging. I was heartbroken at that moment. The next morning, I had to call our son, Cameron, and tell him, he's 12 years old at the time, and tell him, "Son, your mom's not coming home."
Did your son know about what had happened, or you had to explain all of that in that one phone call?
So, no, he didn't know about what had happened.
Okay.
Now, his aunt and uncle, Malika's brother and sister-in-law, they knew about what happened, but they didn't want to break that news to him. They found out about it that night that it happened, and they didn't want to share that. And appreciated that. However, I knew that it was only right for me to tell him that news. And at that point in time, it wasn't known, who it was. It was international news that there was this accident. There was one casualty from the accident, but no names were given at that point. So, he didn't know at that point in time. But I had to break that news to him over the phone.
While you were still trying to figure out all your injuries, while they were still trying to figure out what they needed to do for you, you had to be dad. You had to look out for your son and try to be strong for three people, you, him, and your wife. And you hadn't even had a chance to process what was going on with you, much less what you just heard about your wife, and now how to react to your son. That
Exactly.
I cannot imagine.
It was overwhelming is an understatement. We operate in this life thinking that we can manage everything that comes our way, or that, everything that might happen to us might not be that bad and we can find a way to get past it. However, in this case, I was dealing with the shock, the sudden surprise and awareness that the person who I've been building my life with and around, we were married 15 years, has been taken away. At that point, I didn't know physically what was wrong with me and if I'd even survive. Later on that same night, after I had to tell my son that your mom's not coming home, I found myself in the hospital bed. And what had happened was they tried to reattach my left foot to my leg, and my foot was infected. And what that did was cause infection to start to spread through my body. And as that was going on, I could lay there in the hospital bed and I could see the EKG monitor that was laying, that was above my bed. And I could watch all my vitals, my blood pressure, my heart rate. I could see my oxygen levels. I could see my temperature. All of these things went from green to yellow to red. And I laid there praying to God, thinking to myself and asking him, Lord, why did this have to happen to us? You've taken my wife. I've had to break my son's heart over the phone. I'm heartbroken. And now you're about to take me. That is a lot to have to try to process it's a lot to have to process, period, let alone in the matter of 24 hours.
It's a lot to have to process ever, much less all at the same time. And just not even 24 hours before that, it was, excuse the pun, but it was the most wonderful time of you and your wife's year to that point.
Exactly.
You went from so much to celebrate to so much tragedy in such a short period of time. My brother, I'm sitting here feeling it just as you tell the story. And so I want to say thank you for sharing this story. And I know you've had to share it over and over again, and it probably never gets any easier. So I want to really thank you for that part as well. Let's take a break from that and let's fast forward to, clearly you overcame some things because you're here sharing this story today. And you speak on a word called resilience. And that is actually the title of the book. So it's a two-part question. What made you come up with the title for the book? And then what does the word resilience mean in your life today?
So, as far as the title of the book, I can take you exactly where that decision was made. First off, I can say that just advancing just a little bit from that moment, 2 days after the accident, I was transported to a trauma unit in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, that was willing to accept me, and they were going to do whatever they could to ensure that I was able to survive that. I had to go through an emergency surgery where my left leg was taken away from me. I had to go through 4 surgeries 2 days later. And as I was going through those surgeries, I was all over the place. My body was unstable. It didn't look like I was going to respond in the right way to be able to still be here. But the day after I had to go through those surgeries, and I still had 2 more surgeries I had to go through after that, things were starting to slow down for me as far as being able to process and assess what had happened. And so I can remember it vivid as day. It was July the 5th, 2018. And and I found myself lying in my hospital bed, finally starting to make sense of the fact that Malika was no longer going to be here, and that I still had life that I had to live, and that really that God, if he wanted to take me, he could have taken me 3 times already. I could have died on that boat when the explosion had happened. I could have died while I was in the Bahamas and all of my vitals went to red. And I could have died after going through all those surgeries that day before, but he was keeping me here for a reason. And I didn't know what that reason was. I didn't know what the purpose was at that point in time. But it became clear to me that whatever this reason was, that it was going to be my guiding light, that it was going to be my purpose, and that I had some work to still do here. And at that point, I said to what God told me, that you're not just here to survive, but you're here to thrive. And the only way for me to thrive was for me to overcome what was going to happen. I didn't know what the future looked like, Terrence. I didn't know what was going to be ahead, but I knew I was still here, and I was here for a reason, and that path would become clearer to me. And at that point, I made a decision. I made a choice. Instead of making sure that I felt sorry and depressed and sad about my situation, I didn't know what it was going to take, but I was going to be resilient. And from that point, choosing resilient had been my mantra to move forward with. So coming up with the title of the book to tell this story, and even to go into my path of recovery, resilient was, it just kept sticking to me that I had to be resilient. I had to find the strength within to overcome the challenges that were ahead. I had to face the demons and the what had happened to me. There was no way of denying that or looking past that. However, to move forward, I was going to find a level of resiliency that I didn't have in me, or at least I didn't know that I had in me, and that I hadn't utilized up until that point. But I knew that it was going to require me to be resilient, to be able to move forward with life.
I love it. You guys, you're watching a special episode of the Unstoppable Story Show, the Unstoppable Author Showcase, with my man Tiran Jackson, the author of the book, Choosing Resilience. Everything, all things work together for good. He's going to continue to tell us his story, and we're going to get more into the book, but we want to make sure that you stick and stay, because at the end, we're going to give you the information on how you can get a copy of this book. So we talked about the definition of resilience. We talked about why that was important for you. But even with that, Tiran, being resilient and living a life of resilience doesn't necessarily turn you into an author. It doesn't necessarily translate into taking that and putting it into a book. That's a whole nother level. So why was it important for you to write this into a book?
Well, Terrence, and for me, I had no intentions on ever being an author. When I was an engineer, that wasn't the path I was going to go down. That wasn't what I was going to do. But if I fast forward a little bit, as I went through my recovery, I had to be rebuilt physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. And I took actions that helped me bounce back from the situation. When we do talk about the definition of resilience, it is to bounce back and overcome the challenges and the changes that we happen to face. And so as I was becoming a little bit stronger physically, as I was gaining some of my physical ability back to be able to hopefully one day be prepared to a point where I could walk with a prosthetic again, I was taking action and moving in that direction. Emotionally, I was going through, grief counseling. I had to overcome survivor's remorse. I had to overcome depression, anxiety, PTSD, all of these aspects, things that I was able to, get help in order to help me get there. But as far as becoming an author, here's where it was. Maybe about 6 or 7 months after the accident, I was asked by a friend of mine who was in the life insurance industry if I would just come speak and I would share my story. And he knew where I was broken. He knew me well, and he knew it was going to be hard for me to do. But at that point, I started to heal a little bit, well, more than a little bit emotionally. I was learning how to be both mother and father to my son. And I was learning how to get around again and go from being in this helpless state to where I was actually able to be functional again. In the midst of actually giving that talk, I ended up having people come to me because they were so touched by this. It hit them emotionally. And that led to me going and having other times where I was asked to speak and just share this again. And I'll be honest, I broke down. It was one of the hardest things I had to do to actually start to share this story because I wasn't healed yet. I wasn't. However, I realized that it was impacting people. And the more I began to speak, the more I realized that reach to be able to impact people. And that's where realizing that when you take things like this story, and you put it in a written form where it's easily accessible by others, I was doing myself a disservice to keeping the story to myself and to the people who I was speaking to. So that triggered the thought, hey, maybe I need to go ahead and start writing this, putting this in a book. I can also go back to it was about 2 weeks after the accident, and after I was let out the hospital, I was told that I needed to stay with family to recover for about 6 to 8 weeks because my injuries were they were significant and I couldn't do anything by myself. Yet the hospital determined that there was no reason for me to stay there anymore. In the midst, while I was actually staying with my sister, I had a lot of time to actually think about things, but I began journaling and I began writing down some of these feelings, some of these thoughts, some of these experiences that I was having during that moment, as well as earlier parts of my life. And as I started to move forward, having these thoughts out of my head and actually on paper made it easier for me to say, okay, maybe I should go ahead and put this in a written form into a book. So, when the thought triggered, hey, why don't I write a book about this? It wasn't naturally what I wanted to do or thought I was going to do, but there, and then knowing the impact that it had on other people made it easier for me to say, let me go ahead and put this into a book.
And I can relate to that because the first book I wrote, it started out being a journal for me for the very same thing, to get my thoughts out of my head and so that I could make room for everything else that I needed to do. Sometimes when you've gone through some things and you haven't been able to process them correctly, it can keep you in that stuck state
Exactly.
even longer than after the initial thing that got you stuck in the first place. But being able to get it out of your head and then taking that extra step of letting somebody else know about it,
Right.
it helps you to recognize that, man, this is something that, even though it was tragic what I went through, it's something that can help somebody who may be going through not the same thing I went through, but they may be going through something that has them stuck. That they may be going through something that has them lacking resilience, has them not knowing what it takes to get up after they've got knocked down. So that sounds like what your experience was when you were talking to some of the people that you told your story to. Is that about right?
That's one other piece I want to make sure that I emphasize about this is because leading up to that moment, I lived a very reserved, I was private. I wasn't sharing a lot with a whole bunch of people about, what I was doing, my life as a whole. In the midst of going through what I went through, I had to learn more about myself authentically. I had to learn how to be vulnerable in ways I had never been vulnerable before. And in being able to share this story, I became an open book because I feel like knowing what I've gone through and the lessons that I've learned, there's so many people who can gain, who they might be able to say, I need to take a look at some of the issues in my life, some of the challenges that I'm facing, especially from as Black men from a mental standpoint. I mean, I was a head case emotionally. I didn't know how I was going to get along with things mentally. I didn't know how I was going to move forward. My confidence was low. Here I am, used to being able to get up, move around, do things when I want to. And all of a sudden, I'm finding myself where I'm missing part of my leg. That is a shock, and it'll do a lot to your, mental state if you're not doing anything to address it. So in the midst of going through all of this, I found myself being more vulnerable than I've ever been. And in doing so and putting it out here in this book, that's just another step of showing that vulnerability. But from a mental standpoint, it helped me heal. It helped me grow. Sharing that story was so empowering to me and gave me the confidence to know that, okay, I can help people in a way, even if I can't speak to them directly. So that's something that I think is powerful with this book, being able to show people as a whole that it's okay to know that you have to get some assistance and help. And it's okay to be vulnerable. Learn your most authentic self. Something that I think was so key. But yeah, that's something that I think that is powerful, and I'd love to make sure that others get from reading this story.
Well, we love that you're here talking about the book, Choosing Resilience, and sharing your not only your testimony, but sharing the impact and that the book in writing had on you. And we know the impact that it's going to have on the readers who can now get a chance to read the book because it just dropped yesterday on Amazon as well as your website. So we're going to definitely be talking about how they can get a copy of their book, whether in digital form or in paperback. But let's take a second right now on the Unstoppable Story Show, our Unstoppable Author Showcase, to show a clip about the book.
Inspiration and emotional impact is not something that can be manufactured. It's a one-of-a-kind experience, which I'm proud to share through my story of overcoming my circumstances.
Popular tour boat to explode, killing one American woman and injuring at least 9 others.
These are pictures of the duo taken the day before tragedy struck. They were enjoying a romantic getaway when the engine of the tour boat they were on suddenly exploded off the coast of Exuma.
My story will inspire others to live life more fully and with greater joy. I endured great adversity. But in the end, my experience gave me the strength for when things get tough.
Love it, love it, love it. That is the book, Choosing Resilience. And this is the author of the book, Tiran Jackson. So definitely a very moving piece there. I'm sure it probably was difficult to put all that on camera, to be vulnerable enough to let people see you going through what you had to go through, but to now see you at this point. What kind of a feeling is that looking back on that video?
Well, I'll say it's a great feeling now. At that point in time, I had a difficult time processing, just physically where I was. And when I think back to where I was emotionally, it was challenging. But there's a lot of times where we don't pay attention to the journey and we only focus on where we are at the end of it, after the fact. And in this case, when I look back at that video, when I look back at pictures and look back at moments in time where I was really at my weakest, I was at my greatest state of despair. And to see where I've come to now, it's only God, my faith in God, motivation, being able to have the right mindset to be able to get through the obstacles and not let the obstacles that were facing me to prevent me from being able to reach my potential and get past things. God puts nothing more on us than we can bear. And even though what happened to me was tragic, I for the most part, I knew that it was God's plan that for everything to happen in the way that it has. So even though I was at that low point, I was at that low point only for him to bring me through. And then with that being the case, use me as a vessel in order to share with people that they can overcome the obstacles and the challenges in their path.
Well, that is a great reason to do what you're doing, and you're definitely being felt on the show today. Donald Tolson from Northern Florida says, "Thank you for finding the strength to tell your story with the world." So, thank you, Donald, for watching. We got Luis Lanier watching from St. Louis, and John C. Butler Cherry watching us from DC. So, they are all very much engaged in what you have to say, and they want to learn about what it means and how they can decide to choose resilience in their own life. So what I want to do, there's a couple of chapters that you have in this book, and I'm just gonna throw out a chapter title, and then you just give me, maybe 30 seconds about what they'll get when they read that chapter. So, the first one that jumps out to me is during part one. And I really love that this book is in 3 parts. I feel like this is not only just entertainment, this is education coming right at you. But in part one, you talk about don't stay stuck. So what's that all about?
So that goes back to the basis of being resilient. There are so many times in people's lives, we face this all the time. And based on the level of strength that we have, when we're faced with adversity, we may not be able to have a clear plan on how we're going to get past it. Now, we do have minor challenges that come up. We might lose our keys and get flustered every now and then, or we might order something at a restaurant and get the wrong thing. Those are minor issues or challenges, but those things we have to find a way to recover from that situation. Then there are some more significant and tragic ones or traumatic ones that can really shake us. We lose someone close to us. We end up losing our job. Anything that can really shake us to where we're flustered and we're lost, we can find ourselves in a state of being stuck. So in that first chapter, in that beginning, I talk about a little bit about in that first phase, it's about my upbringing in certain situations that were building resilience within me, even though I didn't know it or realize it at the time. But what I want to point out is that the key is for us not to be stuck in the state that we're in and not to just feel sorry for ourselves, but know that we have to keep moving forward. We have to move past it. Bad news happens all the time, but we can't let it keep us stagnant and in the same place.
And we must be kindred spirits, because I was going right where you just went into. After you decide that you're not going to stay stuck, how do you move forward?
Well, moving forward now, that is something that you have to develop that resiliency and that mindset to know that you're going to not be stopped. And a lot of it comes with having the right frame of mind and confidence in yourself, but also it comes with having the proper motivation that's going to drive you. I'm going to give you a short story here about moving forward. It was probably about a year or so before the accident. And Malika and I, we were sitting in our basement. We were watching a movie or so, just having a good time together. And we were having one of these what if conversations. Now, a lot of times these what if conversations may be all over the place, but it was this question of what if something were to happen to me? What would you want me to do? And Malika asked when Malika answered that question, her statement to me was this: if something were to happen to me, I wouldn't want you to grieve for too long. I would want you to go out and find happiness. I would want you to be able to move forward with life without feeling as though you have to stop everything that you're doing because I'm no longer here. But the most important thing to her was that I did everything within my power to take care of the only part of her that was still going to be left here on this earth, and that was our son. And as I was processing what was happening after the accident, what my future looked like, I kept in mind that I had something I had to uphold. I had to honor her request and be sure that I got myself to a state where I can still raise our son since I was still here on earth. And that became the motivation. That's what got me out of bed every day to go ahead and start my physical therapy, even though I was in so much pain. I was physically broken. That's what got me up to go and see a grief therapist and counselor when I'd never seen therapy in my life. So it was these type of thoughts that kept me motivated, that kept me going, that kept me saying, I've got to keep taking these steps so I can keep moving forward.
And that's a powerful story, and thank you for sharing that, because I've been married 30 years now, so we've had that what if conversation. And anyone who's married, probably who's been married for any long period of time, you were married for 15 years to Malika, so that's a long period of time. You've probably had that what if conversation, and you took it for granted because it's what if. Well, it ain't gonna happen. We going out together. We came in this together. We going out together is what I said to my wife. But she gave you the blueprint with you not even knowing
Right.
of how you were going to be able to move forward, or how you should move forward in that moment. And that is the amazing, crazy way that God works. He gives you what you need, but he doesn't tell you that you're going to need it, but you already have it, so that when you do need it, you can reflect back on it.
Exactly.
I'm not sure if you'd be able to move forward the way you have moved forward if you didn't already have the blueprint in your wife's voice,
Right.
to tell you what you needed to do, and to tell you that the most important thing in that you two created together was your child. That's some powerful stuff, man. And I'm trying to just stay professional in all of this, but this is wow. Sakoni Prince says powerful story. Crystal Josiah says amazing story of resilience. Thank you. So let's bring it now to, here's the question I ask every author when they write this book, because you didn't just write the book for you wrote it for the people who's going to read it. So the question is, what have you heard from the people who have gotten a chance to read some of the advanced copies of some of the chapters? What are some of the things that they've been saying to you about this book and how it's affected them?
Yeah. Well, some of the people who have read the book already and have gone through it, they definitely feel the inspiration that I exude throughout this book. If you think about it, so many of us have been in love. So there's a connection there. So many of us have gone through challenges in our life. So there's a connection there. And sadly, so many of us have had to deal with loss in one way or another. And so there's so many levels to how everyone can relate to this. And it impacts and it touches so many people. Now, as far as how powerful and moving this is, one of the things that I do towards the end of the book is I start the process of laying out what worked for me and what didn't work for me in order to help me bounce back from the tragic situation that I was facing. So with that, it starts to go into the blueprint of some tips that we all can apply, no matter how minor or how significant our issues are. Being resilient and overcoming adversity is all relative. Now, what I like to do is say, okay, these were the lessons that I've learned, and these are some of the things that others can take away from me. Because we're all, look, if you haven't had any adversity thus far in life, then you're blessed and you're lucky, but just wait. It's going to happen. And when it does happen, you need to be as prepared to bounce back from that situation as much as possible. So some of the feedback I've gotten is that this book starts to paint the picture on what you need to do when you're dealing with the circumstance that seems as if it's insurmountable. And
I love it. And one of the things, I haven't read this chapter yet, but I like the title because it's called Resilience Resolve. And to me that just sounds like your manifesto, your mantra. What is Resilience Resolve?
well, at some point, we, as I was going through my journey and I was realizing that there was a greater power in me, it wasn't just me that was allowing me to bounce back. Having that level of resilience and knowing that it was there. And this goes back to the faith piece as well, that the resilience and that God brought me to a point where I was actually making strides. I had become a better version of myself based on what the resilience in me helped drive. I went from, as I said, having to overcome losing my left leg and figuring out if I was ever going to walk again. The doctors told me that it was going to be 6 to 8 months after the accident before I might be able to get fitted for a prosthetic. But having that laser-like focus on making sure I did the things that I needed to do in order to be able to be there for my son and get to a life where I could actually be functional again and not helpless was something that was driving me. And in 3.5 months, I was walking again. And shortly after I was walking again, I was able to jog. And then I was able to work out a little bit. And then that working out became, okay, me trying to prepare for a 5K. I had never been a runner in my life. I learned how to swim. I wasn't a good swimmer before, but I got back in the water, learned how to swim with one leg. That is not an easy thing to do. But all of the resilience that was being built in me and these habits and the consistency that was coming along with these things helped make that resilience be there. And I could look back on where I went, where I came from, and say that, hey, resilience has helped bring me there. That's the resolve that comes with, coming back from something that had set me back, but not keep me down.
Wow. I love it. Dr. Willie Jolly is a mentor of mine, and he always says that a setback is just a setup for a comeback.
Yeah.
That you have had a tragic setback, but you didn't let that hold you back. You found this resolve inside of you. You found this extra level of resilience. And I love resilience, resolve, because they both begin with those two letters, R-E. And R-E really means something that you do again and again and again. This wasn't just one day that you decided that you were going to get up and you automatically started walking. There were some days where you decided to get up and your body wasn't in agreement with you, so you couldn't. But you had to resolve the next day to try it again, and then you had to resolve the next day to try it again, and then that day came where your body was in agreement with your mind, and you got up, and then you had to go to the next level. You didn't just stop there being able to get up. You got into the wheelchair. And then you resolved that this wasn't going to be it for you. So you started to walk, and you resolved that that wasn't going to be it for you because you were resilient enough to know that there was more inside of you and there was a greater purpose for you to go through. So you had to resolve to be resilient until you got to the place that you could put the purpose into action. I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. We are hanging out with Tiran Jackson. He is the author of the book, Choosing Resilience, All Things Work for the Good. So let me ask you the question I was going to ask you before we talked about what people who had the advanced copy had to say about it. Now the whole entire world has the opportunity to get your book. What do you want them to gain from buying and reading your book?
What I want people to take away from reading this book saying is, if he can come back from everything he faced and still be a better person, a better version of himself, that he was able to take those challenges and have those challenges help him find his purpose. He found his purpose through the pain that he faced. And now he's doing things beyond what he ever imagined, that there's no reason why I can't do it as well. When you can walk away and understand that there are no limitations to where we want to go. One of our mentors, Trevor Ott, says this all the time. Everywhere you got in life, your mind got there first. And the same is true here. The same is true. Having that mindset that I don't know how I'm going to get to where I need to get to, but I need to get it. I need to visualize it. I need to get it there. I need to make sure I take the steps to get there. That's what I want the person to read this book to walk away with, to know that, hey, I've got to look ahead. I got to be a visionary. I may be in a place where I'm stuck right now, but nothing's stopping me from getting to where my destiny leads me, where it belongs.
And that's what makes you unstoppable, my brother, because nothing is going to stop you from getting where your destiny is bound to take you. And that's where the resilience resolve comes from, because come hell or high water, and you've been through both, you know that you're going to continue to move forward. You touched on the definition earlier, and I want to just read it again so people can understand and really let it marinate what the definition of resilience is. It's the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties and its toughness. The capacity to recover, and here's that other word, quickly. The capacity to recover quickly, the ability to recover quickly from devastation, the ability to recover quickly from loss, the ability to recover quickly from things that you didn't think you'd ever have to go through in life. That's the definition of being resilient. And if you need some help being resilient in whatever you're going through right now in life, then here's your opportunity to get what I like to call the blueprint, because it's not just a book, it's a workbook. It's the book Choosing Resilience by my man Tiran Jackson, the author of Choosing Resilience. All things work together for good. And now I know you've been waiting, you done heard all these great things about Tiran and all the good things that are in the book, and you just want to know, you want to get that answer to the most pressing question. And that question is, Tiran, how can they get a copy of the book? And better yet, how can they get a signed copy of the book?
So, great question, Terrence. So first off, I'm going to speak on my platform, and my business is titled Reborn Resilient. And the reason for that, the resiliency you all see already. But in going through my journey, I literally went from burning in the flames to having to close the chapter of my life that was leading up to that point, coming out the other side and being transformed. I've transformed into a new person, a person with a different perspective on life, with a different understanding and the value of how important purpose is in my life. I didn't understand that significantly before. And with that said, you can reach me, or you can go to my website, rebornresilient.com, and you can learn more about myself and some of the things that I do, some of the ways I try to impact the world. But you can also order the book there. As well as if you go to the site for the book, is titled choosingresilience.net. So either go to rebornresilient.com or choosingresilient.net, and you can purchase the book and you'll get a signed autographed copy from myself. Now, if you want to, you can also get a Kindle version off of Amazon. But for the signed autographed copy from myself, go to one of those two sites.
Absolutely. We love Amazon, but we're not giving Amazon any extra credit. We want you to go directly to these websites. We want you to blow them up. We want you to go and hit it so hard that it breaks the websites today. So if you want to order the book, just go to, it's right there on the screen, choosingresilience.net. Or if you want to go to the website and learn more about Tiran, if you want to bring him in to speak, if you want to have him come on your virtual or your in-person platform, go to his website, rebornresilient.com, or you can email him directly. His email is right there on the screen. But trust and believe, I got my Kindle copy. I'm waiting on my paperback copy to go. I love just the chapters that I said to you in the book. And if you love just the chapter titles, you know that you are going to love the book. So once again, go ahead. If you want to order the book right now, it's available, choosingresilience.net. If you want to get a closer ideal of what Tiran is doing with his movement, then go to his website, rebornresilient.com, or email the brother directly, Tiran Jackson at rebornresilient.com. Now, Tiran, I'm going to look at some of the comments real quick. Billy Miller from North Carolina, he says, purpose in the pain. Absolutely. You chose purpose, even though you were going through so much pain. And then we have Isabel Luz Camacho Black. She's joining us from Kansas City, Kansas. She says, choosing. I love the fact that we have choices in life. I get to create my purposeful life one choice at a time. She says, unstoppable and intentional living. Thank you, Isabel, for watching. Go ahead and get the book. You won't regret getting the book. But you know what? I could talk about it all day because I just love it. But we're going to give you the last word, Tiran. Talk to us. Let us know what we should know either about connecting with you, connecting with what you're doing in your movement, or just what they're going to get from getting this book, Choosing Resilience.
So I like to start off sharing this quote, and it really means a lot to me. It's not the adversity, but it's our reaction to the adversity that determines how our life story develops. I had to go through a certain level of adversity. And within going through it, I had to respond in a certain way if I wanted to not only continue my life, but to find the purpose and find my way through it. In the midst of it, as I stated before, I woke up face down on the surface of a boat, burning in the flames. And that moment defined what the trajectory of my life was going to look like, where it was going to go. And responding in that moment allowed me to create a new life story that was different from what it was before. Ever since that day, I've become Tiran Jackson 2.0, a man who's been changed, a man who's been transformed. And I went away from being stuck at a certain point in my life to be able to find a purposeful life, to be able to find ways to impact lives and people who are going through similar situations. And that's what being reborn resilient is all about. And some of the things that I do for my platform is I help others who find themselves lost in their direction in their life without any direction, maybe not understanding what their purpose is, maybe not realizing why they're going through some type of trauma or tragedy or transition, and they need to get to that point of triumph. I give you the blueprint. I give you the framework from what I've gone through. And we work together to come up with a plan in order to help you not let that setback be a setup for your biggest comeback. So by visiting me at rebornresilient.com, you can learn more about me. You can learn more about some of the key core values that actually help bring me through my situation and can help you get through yours. And then also have someone that has gone through these steps, who knows what it's like and can hold you accountable to make sure that you take those steps to do what you need. Choosing Resilience will give you part of that framework and give you a better understanding, and it'll shine the light on me and what I went through. It'll be touching. It'll pull out the empathy within you, and it will also allow you to look at this as a mirror on your life and ask yourself, are there times where I could have been resilient, should have been more resilient, but more importantly, will be more resilient in the future? Tiran Jackson, Reborn Resilient, and look at the new book, Choosing Resilient.
I love it. I thank you for resolving to be resilient, Tiran. I thank you for resolving to not just keep this story to yourself, but to use what you went through to help others get through what they may be going through or they may go through in the future. I thank you for enduring the pain in the moment. And I thank you for enduring the pain that I'm sure you relive every time you talk about it. Yeah. But resolving in spite of all that to keep sharing and telling your story, because you know your story is going to lead to somebody else's glory. So I thank you for being the man of God. I thank you for being the man of integrity. I thank you for being the man that decided that you were going to choose resilience. And I just thank God for you. And I hope God continues to bless you in purpose for all that you do. And I thank you for taking some time to join us here on the Unstoppable Story Show with our Unstoppable Author Showcase. You guys, again, the link is below. Go ahead and order the book. Go to his website, choosingresilience.net. If you want to know more about the movement, go ahead and go to his website, rebornresilient.com. And you can also email him at the email below. So that's it, you guys. That is a wrap. Thank you guys for joining us here on the special edition of the Unstoppable Story Show, where we talk to ordinary people with unstoppable stories. And this has been the Unstoppable Author Showcase. And as always, in parting, wherever you are in the world today, you know what I say. Don't just make it a great day. Choose to be resilient, and you can't help but make it an unstoppable day. Take care.